When I was 17, I was forced back into education after a number of years not being in education. You see, when I was in 8th grade, I dropped out. And I dropped out through becoming homeschooled but then not doing any of my work, going to ninth grade in school for like 2 months, not doing any of my work, and then leaving to then not do my work once I was declared homeschooled again. But there came a problem. After moving through 5 states in a single year, and then finally having my family settle on one, which was Kentucky, I was faced with an issue. You see, my parents, they separated, and I was still being a neat, lazy, not doing anything, and things were going generally pretty well for me. Instead of focusing my time on the academic stuff the state wanted me to do, as it pertained to math, English, etc., I was studying Japanese. And in a single month, actually less than a single month, I had learned, recognized, and was able to write over 1,000 kanji through using RTK, James Heisig's Remembering the Kanji, and Anki, and working like 8 hours a day at that single task. And by working at that single task for 8 hours a day, I was able to achieve that number of over 1,000, which was a massive achievement for me. I felt really proud of myself. I felt really good about myself in general at this time, and I felt as though I was working super hard on something that I actually cared about. But there came my dad telling me, "Son, you have to go to school, because if you are not in public school displaying that you're at least showing up, our welfare benefits are going to be cut by, I think it was $150 or $200 or something like that." Even though, legally speaking, I was homeschooled, it didn't matter. They wanted me to display more than I had. And so I was forced to go back into public schooling. But because I was so old, again, I was 17 years old, and I hadn't gone to ninth grade, I had no records of me being in any year in high school, they could not place me in a grade that was suited for my age. I didn't know any of the things that people my age were expected to know. In fact, I knew much less than that when it came to math. And so therein lied the predicament. I had to be placed somewhere. But my school had this special program where basically, if you were super behind, especially years behind, like in my case, you'd be put in this room where you could work on an online program, and as long as you logged in a certain number of assignments on each subject each day, you were considered good. You were doing what you were supposed to do. And in fact, as long as you showed up and had attendance on that program, you would be considered in school. So you could show up and do literally nothing, and it was fine. But this program had a caveat to it that was really cool. Because it was online, you could actually do it from home. So one day, I asked my teacher, I believe it was after the whole kidney stone debacle, if you have listened to that story, I was like, is there any way that I can take this home? Is there any way that I can do my schoolwork at home? I really don't want to be doing that. Here at school, it's hard for me to focus. And I found out that that program that I was in public school actually allowed you to work from home on your assignments as long as you had logged in, attended. And so I was like, great. I can go home, not do any of my work, and not show up a single time to this public school, but my dad will still be getting the welfare benefit that the state has allotted for families. And I was like, it's only going to take less than a year of this shit, so I'm going to take the couple months or whatever it is until I'm 18, and then by the time I'm 18, those requirements will no longer be there, and the full benefits for food stamps, and I think it was TANF, I think that was the program that we were on as well, and some other stuff with SSI, all of that can go through. And then I will not have to be in school in any form. So for me, it was like, I need to wait out the next couple months until I turn 8, or the next, I think it was like 5 months, something like that. And from there, I just logged onto the program sporadically to show some level of attendance. But most of the time, I didn't even do that. And they didn't cut anything. The assumption was that I was in school. I was logged on as attended somehow, even when I didn't go on the program. And the payments kept rolling in, but I didn't have to do any work. Although by this time, I was so demoralized by having to be thrown back in school, having to adjust my sleep schedule at school. Most nights I was getting 1 to 2 hours. Some nights I was getting 3 at best. There were many nights when I didn't sleep at all. I would come to school physically after having not slept for 48 hours and sometimes more, simply because I was so scared of other people that I was stuck awake. I was so stressed that I had to be doing these things that I didn't want to do that I was stuck awake. I felt unable to adjust myself to other people's schedules and the things that they expected of me because I wanted to be on my own schedule. There was a certain schedule I felt comfortable adjusting to that I felt more productive when having, where I was awake at nighttime, asleep in the daytime, and choosing when I could wake up and when I could sleep sporadically, having it change as much as I wanted to. That felt so much better for me. That was a place where I could actually be productive, and it had shown results. I was making so many videos, I was studying Japanese a lot, but then all of a sudden, all of that fell apart when I had to be thrown back in school. And it got to such a point where, like, I felt ready to kill myself just because I was there, which was the same way that I felt when I was in school at other times. Every single day was a day that I wanted to kill myself. So of course I would go home and I'd be unable to sleep because this overwhelming sense that I should not be where I was going to go the next morning was present. And that is an overwhelming sense. And so, of course, the vigilance kicked in, the emotional overdrive kicked in, and I couldn't do it. I simply couldn't do it. So there I was, awake for sometimes 3 days at a time. I fell over one day on the way to the bus because I was so tired. This is a pattern with me. Every time I've had to go to public school, every time I've had a job, I cannot sleep. But there was a solution at the time. The solution was to simply stop. And within the framework that this program gave me, there was actually an out. And one day, I considered just walking off of the premise. You know, I was in the school, I was on their schedule, I was so tired, I considered just leaving the building to go to the bathrooms on the other part of the building, and instead of going there, I wanted to walk onto the grass and leave. In fact, I got pretty close. I started walking that direction, and then I turned back because I didn't want to deal with the legal trouble involved with deserting school when you're supposed to be in school. But I came really close, and I came really close when I had my first job. There was one day that was particularly difficult. I was working overtime on 20 rooms that I had to clean. I had to clean 20 rooms and restock them as well. And it came to be 6 o'clock in the evening after I logged in at 8 or 8:30. And I was looking out at the vast empty nothingness of Wyoming, and I thought, man, I'm just gonna fucking walk into that. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna walk, I'll be gone. Fuck this job. I came so close, but I didn't do it. And that was after 3 days without sleep. I was doing this work because I had to. There was no other way to make money. In the same sense that for a while I was going to school simply because I had to. The government required it of me in order to have the money for my family to live and for myself to live. But because I was in this program for people that were so behind, there was a workaround. The working from home thing allowed the benefits to keep rolling in and me to not do any work and also to not show up. And when I discovered that out, it felt like one of the best things to ever happen to me in my whole life. That's how it felt at the time, because I didn't have to be around those people. And for a while at least, I didn't have to be following their rules.